Okay, so real quick, the battery case is out. It's got those 4 screws, and if you use a extension, once you break them free, then you can just twist the extension, and it makes it a lot easier getting them out because they're recessed. For the bottom of it, there is one clip that connects here in that round hole, and that one, if you lift up the side of the battery bracket, then you can get a 7mm underneath there, push it over the end of it, and it will pop off. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I got the top of the airbox out. It was just those 2 clips, and then this screw right here, and that was a 10mm here. So you got to loosen that up quite a bit to get this clamp real loose, so it'll pull out. Obviously disconnect the mass airflow sensor, and then that'll just pull right out. And then on the bottom part, there's just these 3 bolts that are holding it down. So pull those 3 bolts. Those were also 10mm. And then there's a wire that connects to the side here. This one for me was pretty difficult. It didn't want to pop out with the socket. So what I had to do, because it's got pop-ins on all 4 sides, I had to push the sides in, and the top, so that I could get it angled out a little bit, and then push the 10mm over it and kind of wiggle it around, and I got it to pop out of there. So and then once you get those 3, it just pulls out. Make sure you're careful sliding it off of there, because there is a piece that goes around to seal it, which obviously mine's pretty destroyed. But and then the air filter I set off to the side, but to keep it clean, just put it inside your airbox, and then put the airbox back together so that it keeps dirt from getting in there. And then if it's windy at all, and you got dust blowing around, make sure you stuff a rag into the end, because otherwise your mass airflow sensor is going to get dirty in there, and then you'll end up having a problem with that. And a cleaning might be all it needs, but a lot of times people end up replacing it when it just needs cleaned. So keep the dirt out. Okay guys, so for taking off the air intake, there's some optional stuff here. These are some tools that I used. You can use needle nose like these, but these are real handy to have, these long ones. This one has an angle to it, and I also have one that's a 90-degree. But they're real handy for getting into tight spots back there. And these guys are cool. They are for electrical connectors. The short side is to push the button, and the long side holds the back end of it. So you don't necessarily need those. You can struggle through without them, but they're nice to have. And if those don't work, this little tool here, you hook underneath the front of the connector, and you can slide it under, and it'll pop the clip up so you can slide it off. So that's another nice thing to have there. But to take off the intake, there was an opportunity for the wrench on this bracket here to pop that out. There isn't enough room to get a socket under there, so I brought the wrench in from the side and underneath, and was able to push up on it and get it to pop out. So wrench is handy. And then rather than disconnect or pull off the evap purge valve, I went ahead and disconnected this line back here and left the bottom line wrapped up and over and connected. And then I removed the clip there and pulled that up so I can pull that line off, that little one down there. And then this clamp here, can't see it. This clamp, when you squeeze it together, has like a lock on it, so it'll stay open, and that makes it easier so that when you pull this air intake out, you just kind of wiggle it around and you can pull it out of there. On any of these hoses, these little connections. Like here, make sure you bring the clamp upward, not downward, otherwise it's going to drop down into mystery land down there. But if any of them are difficult to get off, twist it before you pull it, and that'll help break the seal that's keeping it from coming off. And then obviously you have to disconnect the electrical connector from the purge valve as well. And so once you do that, then you should just be able to wiggle it around and get it off. And mine is off, I just did not pull this. So now that that's off, then the whole thing will come out. But you do have to disconnect this hose. Sorry guys, I accidentally cut that off. But you do have to disconnect this hose here, which you squeeze those two rings together and then pull it off of the intake here. And on that one, when you pull that off, if it's like mine, you're gonna have to twist it pretty good because it was really well stuck on there. And if you can't get it off of the air intake there, then you're gonna wanna go ahead and pull it here. But this one generally is even tougher because this one has all the heat from the valve cover and the engine. And then you can see down here, there's your throttle plate inside the throttle body. And while you have it like this is a pretty good opportunity to clean that if you want. Just real mild on whatever you're cleaning it with, and try to get as much of it soaked up so it's not going down in there and getting burned. But since that's open, I'm going to stuff a rag in there too so I don't get any dirt or anything inside there. So this guy is out and out of our way. And next thing I'm going to do, I think I'll go ahead and prep up that cable for the starter next. And I'll show you how to line up the connectors so that you can get it on the right side or on the right, I don't know, the right angle when it's leaving the stud. So I'm going to need a Sharpie for that. I didn't bring that out, but I'll grab that and then we'll put a connector on there and connect it up to the starter. Make sure it's lined up the way we want, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull the starter so I can get to that ground that's way back up underneath it. Yeah, it's not even in view. But the chassis ground we can now get to. That's right here. And you can see that cable, all that green corrosion in there. That's preventing it from having a good electrical path, which is taking amperage away from anything that is grounded to the frame. So that's a real important one there. And you can see it's real small. That's going to be 6, or I think probably 6, but it's quite a bit smaller, you can see, than what we have. It might even be 8, I'm not sure. But we're going to upgrade that. And when we do that, we're going to clean up that surface really well so we get bare metal. And on that grease that we're going to coat all the connections with, make sure you put it on after you get the connection, because you want bare metal to bare metal, and then you want to coat the outside so no moisture can get into the seam that is there. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I have the end stripped, and this is how you want it to line up. You want the connector to go as close to the shielding as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but close to it, because the shrink wrap's going to go over and that's going to cover it either way. But ideally you want to get it as close as possible and not short. You want to make sure it fills the connector. You want to make sure it fills the connector so that you get a good solid crimp on it, on this area back towards where the wire is at. And what I'm going to do, if you saw how I had it on here, I've got it pretty close to lined up to the way it's going to be on the starter. So I'm going to put this down inside there with the way I want the cable to run, and the connector lined up with the stud perfectly, like perpendicular or across it, so that it's in the orientation that it's going to be. And then what I'm going to do is with a marker, or here I'm going to use a paint marker or even a Sharpie, you're just going to draw a line from the connector to the cable. And that's going to tell you the way that you want to line it up when you crimp it so that it is facing the right direction. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it, and then I'll show you the crimper, which is really cool. But if you go a little too long on the strands, you can always just take your cutters and snip off the end. And I started using my snips to strip the wire, but these work really good. The blade is nice and sharp, and you just kind of rotate it around till you get it an even break all the way in. And the best way to tell is to kind of cut into it and then twist it to the sides so that it'll pull away, and you can see that you have a clean cut all the way around. And then once you have a clean cut all the way around, you can just grab it with this little part at the tip here and wiggle it back and forth until it pulls off. So I'll be right back. Okay, you guys, you can see back in there, I got it lined up with the post. Well, you can't really tell now, it kind of twisted, but I got it lined up with the post, and I didn't even pull it out. I just got my wire in the direction I wanted it to go, and then I marked it along the side there. As you can see, it's a little hard to see on the connector because my paint marker is silver, but I don't really want it visible on the connector, so as long as I can see it to line it up, that's all that really matters. So I'm gonna get the crimper out and we'll punch this thing down. Okay guys, so I couldn't really show this on camera, but this is my hydraulic crimper here, and it's a blast. This knob here, you turn it on to release the pressure, and you turn it off to close it. And then once you get it there, you got these little dies, and they're labeled, see, 4AWG, and a whole set of all different kinds of sizes. On here, it's also a 25, I guess. But on this, basically, you're going to put your connector in there, and then pump it until it gets to the point to where it's holding the connector. And then once you get the connector kind of locked in, then you feed your wire into the end of the connector and line up your lines. And the best way I've found is to put one end against the ground and then pump on it. And as you pump on it, it's going to compress that fitting down and keep your cable perfectly straight like you want it. And it's going to smash that connector down, and it makes one heck of a connection. And then once it's all the way down, you don't have to overdo it, but once it's crimped all the way, then you just turn this knob and it opens back up, and you're ready for the next one. So I'll show you in here. I've got it in here now, and you can see my connector lines up and the cable comes off just at a bit of an angle, just like I wanted. And then I'll bring it right up to the battery over here. So that's how you do that. And I'm going to skip over here. If you're doing the alternator too, you're going to need to remove the belt. I've already done it, but I just figured it'd be easier to show you where you loosen it from. So when you take the belt off, if you can see back in there, there is a stud. You can see it's kind of marred up, but that stud back in there is where you're gonna get your tensioner from. It's kind of blurry there, guys, but back inside there, yeah, there we go. That stud is what you're gonna turn. It's a 19 millimeter, I believe, on here, and this is a hydraulic tensioner, so it's gonna be different than if you have a spring one. But there's another bolt way back underneath in there. That's a mounting bolt, so don't turn that one, but get onto this one here, and then with your bar, you're going to get it at as high of an angle as you can, and then you're going to rotate it forward. But when you rotate it, again, do it slow so that you don't damage your hydraulic tensioner, because it's basically pushing fluid through a hole, and if you push too hard, you're going to blow out that seal. And also on here, there is a pivot bolt down in there. You can't really see from here, but there's a pivot bolt down on there that is supposed to be loose. Not necessarily loose, it's torqued down, but there should be pivot in it. If it's over torqued like my old one was, then your belt's going to be really taking a lot of stress, and everything else in there too. So that's that. And then when you pull off the belt, the factory service manual says to pull off the apron, which is the little plastic piece back behind the wheel well there. But you don't really need to, as long as you can reach down to the water pump pulley there. Once you loosen it, just slide it right off the water pump pulley, and that's the easiest way. And then on the alternator, to take that out, we've got one upper bolt there through the bracket, and then there's a lower one down below. Can't really see it here, but basically it's just 2 bolts. So other than this electrical plug here, which is just a clip, and the cable here, it's just those 2 bolts. So it comes out pretty easy, and then we'll put the new one in, and that'll be ready to go. And I think maybe next I'll go ahead and take care of these grounds over here, pull that starter off now that I've got the cable to the right length and right angle, and then I'll show you the ground where it connects to the transmission case down there. Okay guys, so for pulling the starter, it's real simple. Basically you pull the electrical line off here, pop the connector there, you just push in that little button and it'll pop out. And then there's going to be 2 mounting bolts. One of them is here and the other one is back here. So you can see this bracket here on this electrical line goes behind the washer there. So once you pull those 2 bolts, loosen them up, then your starter will slide right out. So once that's out, pull that out, and then the ground is right underneath. So let me pull that out of here and I'll show you where the ground's at. Okay guys, so the starter is out of there, you can see, and underneath it, here is our ground, right to the transmission case. So once we pull that, you'll be able to see the surface. But if you look at the cable, you can see it's all white and green inside. So what you can see there is white and green, but what you can't see is all the way down that wire. And because they don't heat shrink the ends, water travels all through that cable. So the part you can't see is most likely exactly the same, or maybe even worse, because the water doesn't dry as fast. And you can even see on my post here, you get that green corrosion all over there too. So not making a very good contact or current capacity. So I think I'm going to go ahead and change those 2 first, and then we'll go ahead and do the starter after I get the transmission ground connection done there, so that I can cover it up. So let's go ahead and start on the transmission one, I think, because that makes the most sense. Okay guys, this is going to be a little hard to show because the cable's wanting to twist on me, but basically I'm going to go on this end. I'm going to go all the way up to the bolt, and then I'm going to wrap it in about the longest possible route before I even think about cutting it. And I got my angle here that I want, so I'll strip it, put the connector on, and then mark it, and then it'll already be going the direction I want. And because I kept extra length on there, I can just wait until I get the battery in before I trim everything up and make it the right length that I want to make it look all nice and tidy at the battery. So I'm going to go ahead and put that connector on, and I'll be right back for the connection to the actual ground. Okay, so one thing I didn't show with removing the starter and that I'm going to need for removing this ground from the block, these are real tight, so you're going to probably need a breaker bar. So I decided not to include a breaker bar in this because you can also use the belt tool as a breaker bar. With a couple long extensions and a 12 millimeter, you can get down inside there, and even for the starter, with a 14 millimeter and just the bar, you can get the starter bolts loosened. And then once you get them loosened, just use a ratchet to pull them the rest of the way. But this one is very tight, so I'm going to use the breaker bar and pop that loose real quick. And one last tip on that, when you use this, because we're so far from the bolt, make sure that you hold the handle here and your other hand at the head so that it doesn't all flip sideways on you, because if it does, you'll likely strip out that bolt. So hope that helps. Also, when you're breaking these free, do your best to pull, not push, because I was pulling here and pushing here, and when it gave, I went right into all this stuff over here. And you get one of these and one of these, and yeah, you know, no big deal, but you might as well try not to. Okay guys, so when we remove this ground, we see what the issue is. So you can see here the bolt, on the underside of the bolt, you can see it's getting a pretty good contact, but it's not perfectly smooth, so those recesses probably have a little corrosion inside them. And if you look down here at the cable, you got the same thing. And if you look where it was mounted, you can see it's a lot less. You can see that corrosion's crept in around the edge, and that's going to interrupt your electricity flow. And if we flip the cable upside down, you can see on the bottom, that looks even worse. There's not a whole lot. You can see that shiny area, that ring, that's basically the only connection that we had. All our electricity was flowing through that small area. So we got this big, huge cable that's, carrying, or that has a capability of carrying more than the connector will allow it to transfer. So that's why we want to replace these. And when we do, you want to sand down that surface, or maybe wire brush it, but you want to make sure it's real nice and clean bare metal, so that you get a real good contact surface when you put your connector onto it. So okay guys, so I cleaned up those grounds. You can see here, all nice clean metal. You can see there's a few little pits. No big deal. You just want to get it real clean so that it's got a nice solid area to make contact. And if you can get down inside those threads, hey, do that too. More power to you. And then you can see here where the transmission one is, I cleaned that up real good. So you want to get everywhere where that ring's going to sit, and then also the entry path. So like here, it's going to be coming from the front, so I want that real clean, and then the ring all the way around. It's not perfect, but you know, I got it as good as I could without spending forever. And then there, this ground cable, this is all obsolete now. So I just run my two cables and this is gone. And then these little clips here, if I want to reuse these on the back side where the tie comes out, you can actually lift up that middle black tab there with a tiny screwdriver and get it to release so that it'll come out. And then after that, you can wrap this around your cable and then pop it down into the hole the same way that this one is. So if that's convenient, you know, if it only fits around one of the cables because of the fact that we're using 4-gauge, then wrap it around one and just attach your other one to it. In my case, I'm going to be using 2 separate wire looms for the two. So, I could wrap this on one of the wires, pop it in there, wrap the wire loom around it, and then yeah, you know, just attach the other one to it, and you won't even see it because it'll be underneath coming out of the loom. So those are clean, and this is the screw for the chassis ground, and you can see it's real messy under there. Not a lot of area that was contacting, a lot of corrosion got in there. So I'm going to take the Dremel and I'm going to clean that up real good, and then I'll be right back after that. A wire brush would also work for that too, or sandpaper. I'm just gonna use the Dremel because the washer likes to spin, so it's a bit difficult for a wire brush or even sandpaper.